3:47 a.m. on Christmas morning, a mother in Wisconsin woke up to the sound of footsteps on her roof. She told herself it was just the wind, just ice shifting on the shingles. Then she heard something sliding down the chimney. And then she heard her daughter scream. That family moved out 2 weeks later. They never talk about what happened that night. And the police report was sealed. But that's the thing about Christmas, isn't it? We spend so much time making everything feel magical. The lights, the music, the presents under the tree. We leave our doors unlocked for family. We invite strangers dressed as Santa into our malls, our stores, our homes. We let our guard down. And some people know that. Some people count on it. In this video, I'm going to share 3 terrifying true stories that happened during the most wonderful time of the year. The first involves a man who drove to a remote Christmas tree farm on Christmas Eve afternoon and found something in those woods that still haunts him to this day. The second is about a woman who received a series of anonymous gifts leading up to Christmas. Gifts that proved someone had been watching her for a very, very long time. But stay until the end, because the final story involves a Christmas Eve home invasion so calculated and so terrifying that the woman who survived it refuses to celebrate the holiday anymore. These are 3 true Christmas horror stories. Story number 1. The Last Tree. I've been cutting down my own Christmas tree for as long as I can remember. It's a family tradition that started with my grandfather, passed down to my dad, and now to me. There's something about walking through a snowy field, picking out the perfect tree, and cutting it down yourself that just feels right. More real than grabbing one from a parking lot somewhere. Every year, I go to the same tree farm about 40 minutes outside of town. Henderson's family farm. They've been in business since the 1960s. Nice people, good trees. Never had a single problem. But this past Christmas Eve, Mr. Henderson had a stroke in early December. The farm was closed for the season. No trees. No hot cocoa. No hay rides. Just a handwritten sign on the gate that said, "See you next year." I was devastated. My kids were devastated. It was already December 23rd, and I didn't have a tree. Most of the lots in town were picked clean. Nothing left but the Charlie Brown rejects that nobody wanted. That's when my wife found a listing online. A place called Evergreen Acres, about an hour and a half north. The website looked a little outdated, like it hadn't been updated since 2005, but the photos showed beautiful Fraser firs, and the price was reasonable. Most importantly, they were open on Christmas Eve until 4 p.m. I called the number listed. A man answered, his voice gravelly and flat. He said they had plenty of trees left. He said to take Route 12 north until I saw the sign. He said I could cut down any tree I wanted for $40. I thanked him and hung up. Something about his voice felt off. Rehearsed, almost, but I was desperate. I told my wife I'd be back in a few hours. I left around noon. The drive started fine. Light snow was falling, just enough to make everything look like a postcard. But as I got further north, the roads got narrower. The snow got heavier. The GPS signal started getting weak, jumping around, recalculating every few minutes. By the time I hit the 1-hour mark, I hadn't seen another car in 20 minutes. The sign for Evergreen Acres appeared out of nowhere. It was old, wooden, half covered in snow. The paint was faded and peeling. The arrow pointed down a dirt road that disappeared into a dense wall of pine trees. I turned onto the road. My tires crunched through fresh snow. No other tracks. I was the only one who'd been down this path today. The tree farm, if you could call it that, was nothing like the pictures online. There was no welcome center, no parking lot, no other customers. Just an endless field of evergreens stretching into the gray, overcast sky, bordered on all sides by thick, dark woods. An old pickup truck was parked near the entrance. Red, rusted, probably from the 1980s. No one was inside. I pulled up next to it and got out. The cold hit me immediately. My breath came out in thick clouds. The only sound was the wind whispering through the pine branches. "Hello?" I called out. I called earlier about a tree. No response. I walked toward the tree line, figuring maybe the owner was out in the field somewhere. I had my handsaw with me, the same one my dad used to use. I told myself I'd just pick a tree, cut it down, leave the $40 on the truck's windshield, and get out of there. But here's where things started to feel wrong. About 100 yards into the field, I noticed something on the ground. Footprints, fresh ones. But they weren't walking in a normal pattern. They were circling, looping around the same cluster of trees over and over again, like someone pacing or watching. I stopped walking and looked around. The trees were dense here, blocking my view in every direction. I couldn't see my car anymore. I couldn't see the entrance. "Hello?" I called again. "Anyone there?" The wind died down, and in that sudden silence, I heard something. Breathing, not my own. Someone else's, close, maybe 20 feet away, hidden behind the trees. I held my breath and listened. It was ragged, uneven, like whoever it was had been running, or was excited about something. "I'm just here for a tree," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll pay and get out of your way." No response. But the breathing stopped. I turned and started walking back toward my car. Fast, not running, but fast. Every instinct in my body was screaming that I needed to leave. Right now. I made it about 50 yards when I saw it. A structure I hadn't noticed before. Off to my right, half hidden behind a row of trees. It was a shack. Wooden, rotting, with a sheet of plastic covering what used to be a window. The door was open, hanging off one hinge. And inside, through that open door, I could see something red. At first, I thought it was a blanket, or maybe Christmas decorations. But the more I looked, the more details I could make out. It was a Santa suit, hanging from a hook inside the shack, stained, torn, and below it, on the floor, were tools. A hacksaw, a hunting knife, rope coiled in neat loops. My stomach dropped. I turned and ran. I ran as fast as I could through the snow, my boots slipping, my lungs burning in the frozen air. I could hear footsteps behind me now, crunching through the snow, getting closer. I didn't look back. I reached my car and threw myself inside, slamming the lock button so hard my palm bruised. I jammed the key into the ignition and turned it. The engine sputtered. I turned it again. The engine coughed, struggled, and finally roared to life. I threw the car into reverse, just as a figure emerged from the tree line. It was a man. Tall, wearing a heavy coat, his face hidden beneath a hood. He wasn't running. He was just standing there, watching me, his head tilted slightly to the side. In his right hand, catching the gray winter light, was the hunting knife from the shack. I floored it in reverse, fishtailing through the snow, spinning the wheel until I was pointed back toward the main road. I didn't slow down until I was back on Route 12, surrounded by traffic and other people. I never got my tree that year. My kids were disappointed, but I told them we'd do a little artificial one instead. They didn't understand. They couldn't. A few days after Christmas, I tried to find the website for Evergreen Acres again. It was gone. The domain didn't exist. The phone number I'd called was disconnected. I even drove back up Route 12 a week later, just to see if I'd imagined the whole thing. The sign was gone. The dirt road was there, but it was blocked by a rusted chain and a private property sign that looked brand new. I don't know who that man was. I don't know what was happening at that farm, but I know what I saw in that shack. And I know what he was holding when he came out of those trees. Now I buy my trees from the parking lot at Home Depot. My kids think I've gotten lazy. My wife thinks I've lost the Christmas spirit. But I know the truth. Some traditions aren't worth dying for. That was a story about what happens when you drive to the wrong place at the wrong time. A man who escaped because he trusted his gut and ran. But the woman in our next story didn't have anywhere to run. Because the danger didn't come from somewhere far away. It came right to her front door, night after night, for 12 days straight. And by the time she realized what was happening, it was almost too late. Story number 2, The 12 Days. The woman who shared this story asked me to call her Emily. She's 34 years old, works as a paralegal, and lives alone in a small house in a quiet suburb. She's lived there for almost 6 years, knows most of her neighbors by name, and has never, in all that time, felt unsafe. Until last December. It started on December 13th, 12 days before Christmas. Emily came home from work to find a small box on her front porch. It was wrapped in red paper with a green bow on top. No return address, no shipping label, just a handwritten tag that said, Day 1. She assumed it was from her mother, who lived a few states away and loved sending surprise gifts. She brought it inside, set it on her kitchen counter, and opened it. Inside was a single item, a partridge ornament. Hand-painted ceramic, very detailed, very expensive looking. There was no card, no note, nothing to indicate who it was from. She texted her mom to say thank you. Her mom had no idea what she was talking about. Emily shrugged it off. Maybe a coworker, maybe a neighbor doing a random act of kindness. She hung the ornament on her tree and forgot about it. The next day, December 14th, there was another box. Same red paper, same green bow. The tag said, Day 2. Inside were 2 small figurines. Turtle doves. Emily was confused now. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone was recreating the 12 Days of Christmas song with actual gifts. It was elaborate, expensive, and completely anonymous. She asked around. Her coworkers didn't know anything. Her neighbors hadn't seen anyone on her porch. Even her ex-boyfriend, who she briefly suspected, had been in another state for a work conference all week, which she verified. But the gifts kept coming. Day 3, 3 French hen figurines. Day 4, a box containing 4 decorative ceramic birds labeled calling birds. Day 5, a velvet box containing 5 golden rings. That one made her pause. The rings looked real, solid gold, probably worth hundreds of dollars each. This wasn't a cute Secret Santa prank anymore. This was serious money, serious effort, and no one she knew would spend this kind of money anonymously. By day 6, she was starting to get scared. She installed a doorbell camera that night, but when she reviewed the footage the next morning, after day 7's gift had appeared, the camera showed nothing. No car, no person, just her empty porch, and then in a single frame skip, the box was there, like it had materialized out of thin air. Whoever was doing this knew about the camera, and they knew how to avoid it. Day 8 was when things took a turn. The box was larger this time, heavier. Emily hesitated before opening it. Her hands were shaking. Inside were 8 small glass bottles. They looked like perfume bottles, but they were filled with a pale, milky liquid. A handwritten note was tucked inside. It said, 8 maids a-milking. I watch you make your coffee every morning. You should really close your kitchen blinds. Emily felt her stomach drop. She ran to her kitchen window. It faced the backyard, which was bordered by a wooden fence and a thick row of hedges. Beyond that was a small wooded area that separated her neighborhood from the next street over. She'd never thought about it before, but standing there, looking out, she realized that anyone in those woods could see directly into her kitchen. They could see her making breakfast. They could see her in her pajamas every morning. They could see everything. Emily called the police. They came out, took a report, and told her there wasn't much they could do. No threats had been made. No laws had technically been broken. They told her to keep documenting and to call if anything escalated. But how could it not escalate? There were still 4 days left. Day 9 brought 9 small porcelain figurines of dancing women. The note said, "I love the way you dance when you think no one is watching." Emily had danced in her living room the night before, alone, with the curtains open. She closed every blind in her house and didn't open them again. Day 10, 10 ceramic figures. The note said, "Getting closer." Day 11, 11 tiny flute ornaments. The note said, "I can hear your heartbeat through the walls." It speeds up at night when you're scared. Emily stopped sleeping. She sat in her bedroom with a kitchen knife, staring at the door until the sun came up. And then came day 12, Christmas Day. She woke up that morning, exhausted, terrified. Having finally dozed off around 4 a.m., she walked to her front door, expecting to find the final box on the porch. But there was no box. Instead, there was something else. A photograph. It was a picture of her, asleep in her bed, taken from inside her bedroom. The timestamp in the corner said 3:47 a.m. that same morning. On the back, in neat handwriting, were the words, 12 drummers drumming. Can you hear your heart? I can, Emily screamed. She called 911. She ran to her neighbor's house and refused to go back inside until the police arrived. They searched her home, every room, every closet, every inch of the attic and basement. They found a window in her basement that had been jimmied open, fresh scratches on the frame, muddy footprints on the floor that didn't match any of her shoes. Someone had been inside her house, maybe more than once. They never caught him. No fingerprints, no DNA. The photograph was printed on standard photo paper, available at any drugstore. The gifts were untraceable, purchased with cash from different stores across 3 counties. Emily moved out the next week. She stayed with her sister until she found a new apartment in a different city, 100 miles away. She doesn't decorate for Christmas anymore. She doesn't accept packages she didn't order. And every night before bed, she checks every window, every door, and every closet, because she knows he's still out there, whoever he is, watching, waiting, counting down the days until he finds her again. And she knows that next time, there might not be 12 days of warning. Emily's stalker never made direct contact. He watched. He toyed with her. He let her know he could get to her whenever he wanted. But he never took that final step. The woman in our final story wasn't so lucky, because the person who came for her on Christmas Eve didn't want to scare her. He didn't want to play games. He wanted inside, and he was willing to do anything to get there. This is The Visitor. The woman who sent me this story asked me to keep her name completely anonymous. She doesn't even want me to give her a fake one, so I'm just going to call her Mom, because that's what she was focused on that night, protecting her children. It was Christmas Eve, 2021. She was 37 years old, recently divorced, and living in a small 2-story house in a suburban neighborhood in Pennsylvania. Her 2 kids, ages 7 and 9, were upstairs asleep, dreaming of presents and Santa Claus. Her ex-husband had the kids every other Christmas. This was her year, and she wanted everything to be perfect. By 11 p.m., she had finished wrapping the last of the presents. The tree was lit. The cookies and milk were set out. Soft Christmas music was playing from a speaker in the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of wine and settled onto the couch to enjoy the silence. Outside, snow was falling gently. The neighborhood was quiet. Every house on the street was dark, except for the Christmas lights twinkling in the yards. She was just about to head to bed when the doorbell rang. She walked to the front window and peeled back the curtain just enough to see the porch. There was a man standing there, He was wearing a Santa Claus suit, full costume, red coat, white trim, black boots, the whole thing. He even had a white beard, though she couldn't tell if it was real or fake. He was holding a large red sack over his shoulder. For one brief, confused moment, she thought maybe her ex-husband had hired someone, some kind of Christmas Eve surprise for the kids. But that didn't make sense. The kids were asleep. Her ex didn't have that kind of money, and he would have told her. She didn't open the door. Instead, she called through it. "Can I help you?" The man's voice was muffled but cheerful. "Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. I'm from the neighborhood association. We're delivering gifts to families on the block." She didn't respond right away. Her neighborhood didn't have an association. She'd lived here for 4 years. There was no committee, no HOA, nothing like that. "I'm sorry," she said, keeping her voice calm. "We're all set. Thank you." There was a pause. Then the voice came again, slightly less cheerful. "Ma'am, I have a special delivery here for your kids. It's already been paid for. I just need a signature." Her heart started beating faster. He knew she had kids. He knew they were here. "Please leave it on the porch," she said. "I'll get it in the morning." Another pause, longer this time. "Ma'am, I really need you to open the door." The cheerfulness was gone from his voice now. It was flat. Almost irritated, she backed away from the door slowly. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, keeping her voice low as she explained the situation. The dispatcher told her to stay on the line and that officers were on the way. For almost a full minute, there was silence from the porch. She thought, hoped, that maybe he had left. Then she heard footsteps, moving around the side of the house. She ran to the kitchen and looked out the window. She could see him in the backyard now, walking slowly toward the back door, still wearing the Santa suit, still carrying the sack. But now she could see what was sticking out of the sack. A crowbar. She grabbed a knife from the block and ran to the back door, making sure the deadbolt was locked, pushing a chair under the handle for extra measure. The man stopped about 10 feet from the door. He looked up at her through the window, and then, slowly, he smiled. "Let me in," he said. His voice was calm now, conversational. "I just want to talk. It's Christmas. Don't you want your kids to have a good Christmas?" She didn't answer. She backed into the hallway, positioning herself between the back door and the staircase. If he got inside, he'd have to go through her to get to her children. For what felt like an eternity, the man just stood there, watching her through the glass. Then, without warning, he moved. He swung the crowbar the back door window. The glass exploded inward, shards scattering across the kitchen floor. He reached through the broken window and started fumbling with the lock. But she was still holding the chair, still pressing against the door with everything she had. He pushed. She pushed back. Her feet were sliding on the tile floor, losing traction. And then, from upstairs, she heard her daughter's voice. "Mommy?" Something inside her snapped. Not broke, snapped into place. A clarity she'd never felt before. She let go of the chair, grabbed the knife, and as the door swung open, she slashed. The blade caught him across the forearm. He screamed, stumbling backward, clutching his arm. Blood was already soaking through the white fur trim of his sleeve. "You crazy," he shouted, backing away. That's when she heard it. Sirens. Close, getting closer. The man heard them too. He looked at her, looked at his bleeding arm, and then turned and ran. He disappeared around the side of the house into the snowy darkness. By the time the police arrived 2 minutes later, he was gone. They searched the neighborhood for hours. They found drops of blood leading to a side street 3 blocks away, where the trail ended. He'd had a car waiting. She gave a description. White male, approximately 6 feet tall, heavy build. But she'd never seen his face clearly. The beard and hat covered most of it. They never found him. The investigation revealed a few chilling details. Several houses in the neighborhood had reported a man in a Santa suit walking around that week, spreading holiday cheer. Most people thought it was harmless, maybe a charity thing. No one called the police. One neighbor had even let him inside to take a photo with their kids. The detectives told her she was lucky. They'd seen cases like this before. Men who used the holidays to get access to homes, to families, to children. The Santa costume is perfect because it's disarming. No one suspects Santa. She moved out of that house in January. She and the kids live in a gated community now, with a security system, cameras on every corner, and a dog that weighs more than she does. She told me that her kids still don't fully understand what happened that night. She told them a bad man tried to get into the house, but Mommy scared him away. They think she's a superhero, but she doesn't feel like a superhero. She feels like a survivor. And every Christmas Eve, when the sun goes down and the neighborhood gets quiet, she sits by the window with that same knife, watching, waiting, because she knows the truth. He's still out there somewhere, wearing a different costume, knocking on a different door, looking for someone who will let him in. And next time, he might find one. 24:30 to 25 minutes and 30 seconds. Outro. Narrator. 3 stories. 3 people. 3 moments when the magic of Christmas became something else entirely. The man who drove to a tree farm and found a nightmare waiting in the woods. Emily, who opened 12 gifts from a stranger who had been watching her for months, who had been inside her home while she slept. And a mother who fought off an intruder in a Santa suit, protecting her children with nothing but a kitchen knife and sheer will. The holidays are supposed to be about family, about warmth, about coming together with the people we love. We open our doors to strangers. We trust that the world is a little kinder this time of year. But not everyone shares that spirit. Some people use the holidays as a hunting ground. They count on our goodwill. They count on our open doors and our distracted minds. They wear costumes and smiles and wait for the perfect moment to strike. So this holiday season, be careful who you let in. Check who's at your door before you open it. Trust your instincts. And if something feels wrong, it probably is. If you have a scary Christmas story or any holiday horror experience, email me at the address in the description. I read every single one. Your story might be featured in an upcoming video. And if you're spending Christmas alone this year, please stay safe. Lock your doors, close your blinds. And if someone knocks late at night, dressed in red, asking you to let them in, do not open that door. This has been 3 true Christmas horror stories. Happy holidays. Sleep tight. And remember, not everyone in a Santa suit is bringing gifts.